Discover spine-chilling haunted stories in the rain, 13 terrifying tales exposed in darkness. The rain slashed against the pavement like 1,000 desperate hands scratching for safety, its relentless drumming echoed against the darkened houses of Willow Creek. Shadows crawled through alleys, thickening with each gust of wind. In the distance, laughter shattered the eerie stillness, a faint, innocent sound that felt unnatural amidst the looming dread. Rachel tightened her grip on the umbrella, knowing she should feel relieved as she spotted her son, Ethan, playing beneath the flickering streetlight. But the sight triggered a primal fear, an urgency that clawed at her heart. "Ethan, get inside," she called, wading through the torrent, her voice lost in the thundering rain. Her eyes darted around, sensing sinister forces lurking. The laughter faded abruptly as chilling sirens echoed through the alleys, a clear reminder of the recent disappearances that haunted their community like a dark cloud. Whispers drifted through the neighborhood, fingers pointed to Tom, that friendly neighbor who seemed to know everything but could never be seen when it mattered. "Ethan, now!" she shouted, the panic spilling into her voice. Ethan's laugh turned into silence, leaving an unsettling feeling that twisted her insides. As she reached the light, her heart plummeted. Where were the other kids? A chill crept down her spine when she noticed Tom crouching down, his voice a low murmur as he spun stories that seemed to ensnare the younglings. Ethan stood captivated, glancing nervously into the obsidian shadows just beyond the glow of the light. Her instincts screamed at her the shadows were alive, hungry with something wicked. "Don't talk to strangers," rang desperately in her ears. In that moment, something changed. The rain's ferocity intensified, drowning the festivities in a sinister shroud. It's like time stopped as the warmth of a moment turned to ice. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." Her warning lay unspoken in the stormy air. In a heartbeat, laughter dissolved into the night, and the children scattered like autumn leaves in the wind. "Ethan!" she gasped, veins icy as she realized he was gone. The panic clenched her throat as she sprinted into the shadows, racing past sunken porches and flickering lights. Each step echoed louder than the last, thrumming in her ears like a death knell. Ghostly whispers taunted her, swirling through the rain, the shadows watching, waiting. "Where are you?" The words clawed from her mouth as desperation leaned heavy on her chest. As she neared Tom's home, dread thickened in the air. She could feel it, the thick, malevolent essence wrapping around her like a cloak. A voice echoed from within, chilling her to her core. "You should have listened, Rachel. The shadows are watching." She froze, the weight of truth slamming into her as she realized the real monsters of Willow Creek were those she thought she could trust. Would Ethan become one more lost soul in the rain? The storm raged on, fury colliding with her heart, leaving her to confront the untold horrors waiting just beyond the door of darkness, where the shadows devoured hopes, and truth crept in like the midnight hour, whispering her name. The door to Tom's home loomed before Rachel, its paint peeling like the truth she feared to uncover. She pressed her palm against the cold, damp wood and hesitated. A chill drove through her wrist, sinking deep into her bones as she thought of Ethan, alone somewhere in this storm. "No time for fear," she whispered to herself and knocked, a hollow echo swallowed by the storm. The door creaked open, revealing a dimly lit interior. The warmth inside was unsettling, magnifying the cold sweat on her brow. Tom's face emerged from the shadows, eyes twinkling unnaturally, reflecting the low light gleaming off the floorboards. "Rachel, what a lovely surprise," he greeted, but his words dripped with a sweetness that set her teeth on edge. Come in, come in. We were just discussing some stories." "Where's Ethan?" she croaked, forcing the words through the fog of dread settling in her throat. The air polarized, heavy with unspoken things lurking just beyond the thin barrier of comfort. Ah, the boy Tom's smile faltered as he glanced back inside the dimness. He was so eager to hear my tale. Children love stories like these, especially when the rain dances like a symphony outside. Panic shot down Rachel's spine, igniting her instincts. She pushed past him, stepping into the house, the threshold feeling like a line she could never uncross. Voices soft, lilting whispers echoed from deeper within, a chorus of innocence corrupted. They grew louder, tinged with a sinister melody that made her stomach churn. "Ethan!" she yelled, her voice breaking against the oppressive silence. It was swallowed by the shadows, her screams fading into the thick walls. Rachel's heart hammered as she pressed further in, the rain battering against the windows, creating a rhythm that matched her rising fear. Tom followed at a slow pace, his footsteps devoid of urgency. There was something purposeful in his slowness, something predatory. "You really shouldn't rush, dear Rachel. Stories unfold best in their own time." He chuckled, and that laugh crawled beneath her skin, coiling into her mind like a snake. She navigated through the darkened rooms, each step sensing a shift. Creaks and whimpers merged with the howling wind, enveloping her with claustrophobic dread. A door stood ajar, a faint glow bleeding through the crack, and she rushed toward it. "Wait!" Tom's voice was a sharp knife cutting through the damp air. She dared a glance back, and he stood there, bathed in an uncanny light, his expression shifting into something monstrous, his form bending against unnatural angles. Ignoring him, Rachel pushed the door open, her breath catching in her throat. Inside, a group of kids huddled in a circle, faces illuminated by candlelight, entranced by a glimmering object in the middle. "Ethan!" she cried, relief flooding her veins only to suck it back as she realized he was not moving. "Mom!" His voice was small, as if he were awakening from a dream. Rachel rushed forward, but their eyes met with something hollow, the light shining in his gaze muted and distant. The gleam rested in the center, a twisted charm or an old music box, its lid slightly opened, enchanting the children. The notes played softly, stealthily crawling into her mind, filling the air with an unreal danger. "No! Ethan, we need to go." She lunged for him, but the moment her fingers brushed his arm, the room around her shifted. Shadows twisted, growing longer and thicker, curling like smoke, wrapping around the children in the most sinister embrace. The music's tempo quickened, thrumming through the walls, stirring something within the dark. It was a call, an invitation, one she had no intention of accepting. "Help!" she shouted, but the words were lost in the song, the walls echoing with unbearable laughter from unseen mouths. And in that instant, Rachel understood, the shadows weren't merely watching, they were hungry. The music crescendoed, and reality blurred. All that mattered was reclaiming Ethan from this nightmare, unraveling the threads that bound him to this twisted fate. "Let him go!" Rachel screamed, but only the laughter answered. The shadows pulsated, eager for more souls to snare, more stories to claim. As panic gripped her heart in a vice, the music box thudded closed, silencing the haunting sounds, leaving her frozen in a void of darkness. She turned back toward Tom, his handsome facade shredded to reveal the malevolence beneath. "You can't take them away," he hissed, shadows spilling out from his very soul. But she was not done fighting. The storm raged outside, drowning her resolve, but she'd wrestle her son from the abyss if it was the last thing she did. What dark secrets of Willow Creek lurked just beyond the walls of this cursed home? The game was only beginning. Ethan's vacant stare chilled Rachel to the bone. She fought the impulse to look away, focusing instead on the glimmering box that had entranced him. It loomed between her and the children like a siren, its music hauntingly sweet yet laced with a poison that seeped into her bones. "Ethan! Come on!" She reached again, desperation clawing at her throat. But he didn't blink. The shadows behind him swayed, whispering secrets only they could understand. Whatever was happening, it was not just a story. Tom's laughter resonated in the claustrophobic space, mocking her desperate plea. "Not so fast, Rachel. They're just getting acquainted with the narrative. It's a lovely tale, really, one that needs to be experienced, not rushed. His smile twisted into a grotesque parody of kindness, revealing teeth that seemed too sharp. Behind her, the phantom laughter grew louder, interwoven with the music, and an urge to flee surged within Rachel. But she couldn't leave Ethan. Not like this. Ethan, listen to me. You need to wake up. Her voice trembled as she stretched her hand further, fingertips grazing the tips of his. The shadows began curling around her wrist, like a predator cautiously tightening its grip, testing for weakness. The moment her fingers brushed his arm, a shockwave surged through her. The music box vibrated violently, releasing a discordant note that shattered the sinister harmony, and in that instant, Ethan's eyes flickered with recognition. Mom. His voice was a breath of sanity, a flicker of the boy she knew. But before Rachel could respond, the shadows around him convulsed, pulling him deeper into their fold. Ethan, no. She lunged forward, strength pouring through her limbs as she felt the cold fingers of darkness brush against her skin. The air thickened, twisting, alive with danger, and she could hear whispers now, malicious secrets spilling forth like a torrent. Join us, they hissed, a chorus that crawled inside her head, pleading and demanding all at once. That in one swift motion, Rachel ripped her hand away, instinct driving her to act. Get away from him! She screamed, pushing through the disorienting haze. The shadows recoiled, shrieking as she took another step forward, not backing down. But the air crackled with an energy she could taste like burnt metal and ash. In the chaos of it all, the music box opened again, revealing a kaleidoscope of vivid images, faces caught in torment, children laughing, trapped forever in a loop of terror. It was a trap, a lure designed to ensnare the soul. Rachel's heart raced as she glimpsed Ethan's face, caught between his reality and this macabre spectacle. Mom. His voice was weaker now, the steadiness fading like a distant echo. The shadows surged forward, sickening tendrils reaching for him like desperate hands. Tom's laughter filled the space, brimming with malevolence. No. Rachel forced herself to the edge of sanity, keeping her focus on her son. Each breath felt like swimming against a current, heavy with dread. Ethan, I'm coming. With a primal scream, she lunged. The music grew louder, a deafening roar that surged within her, pushing her toward Tom. In that moment, everything began to shake. The world warped around her, a violent tremor that sent the children tipping into the shadows. Tom's figure flickered, momentarily revealing something monstrous lurking within. You cannot save him. He bellowed, a flicker of panic crossing his sharpened features as the shadows around him wavered. Watch me. With one final push, Rachel reached for Ethan, grabbing his arm tightly, pulling against the darkness. Cold rushed through her, a sharp contrast to the desperate warmth of her son's fading pulse. As her fingers clasped around him, the room erupted in chaos. Shadows shrieked and twisted, the walls pulsing with dark energy refusing to relinquish hold. Suddenly, the music stopped. Silence slapped them, heavy and suffocating. But the shadows didn't disperse. Instead, they shrieked, a banshee wail that rattled the rafters. The air crackled like static before the silence shattered, leaving Rachel gasping for breath. Let us go, Ethan. She pulled him closer. Yet, something caught her eye, glimmering within the music box now, a truth buried deep, a revelation forming in the chaos. In that moment of eye contact, time seemed to stand still. She was not just fighting for Ethan. Something darker loomed over Willow Creek, binding these souls to Tom and this cursed place. What had she unleashed? With terror mounting, Rachel heard the whispering rise again, gloating in the shadows. An echo of lost children, beckoning from the depths as Tom grinned, his face deformed, an unholy mask of madness. Will you join my collection? He whispered, his voice smooth like ice. And with that, the shadows tightened their grip, pulling them down into an abyss of horror. Rachel felt the icy breath of doom caress her neck, the darkness looming, just inches away from consuming them both. Was it too late to reclaim her son? What other horrors lay lurking within the depths of Tom's world? just waiting to be awakened. The moment Rachel touched Ethan, she felt an anchor pulling her deeper into the darkness. She gripped his arm, aware that the cold tendrils reaching toward her seemed to pulse with a life of their own. Tom's laughter echoed around them, each note twisting into a visceral dagger. "Let him go!" Rachel screamed, her voice rising above the chaos, desperation fueling her. The shadows ebbed and flowed, flickering like a dying flame, seemingly torn between her cries and Tom's sinister influence. Ethan's face twisted in fear. "Mom, I can't, there's something inside me." His eyes darted toward the music box, where the haunting melody began to rise again, a siren-esque call begging them to surrender. "Fight it, Ethan. You're stronger than this." She tried to convey every ounce of hope through her grip. The whispers grew louder, rising up like a violent wave crashing upon the shores of sanity. Words spilled forth, taunting her with horrors she could only partially understand. "Give and join us, it's only the beginning." With a surge of adrenaline, Rachel pulled Ethan harder. The shadows screamed, their agony a cacophony that clawed at her mind. They didn't want to be released, they were a mass of despair and longing, desperate to drag more into the abyss, and then it happened. The music reached a fever pitch. The box opened wider, revealing a swirling vortex of light and dark, and for a moment, Rachel thought she saw real faces among the shadows, children just like Ethan, their eyes wide with terror, trapped within the fabric of this nightmare. "No. You're not taking him." Rachel's heart raced as she pushed against a force she could barely comprehend. She shut her eyes, the pressure in her mind intensifying, threatening to burst forth. Images flooded her thoughts, extracted screams, flashes of memories that weren't her own. Then, silence. The shadows stilled. It was an eerie quiet that hung heavy in the air, like the calm before a storm, and Rachel's breath caught in her throat. Ethan's grip loosened, and in that split second, Rachel felt the boundaries of their connection tugging with raw emotion. Tears blurred her eyes as she opened them again. There before her, a flicker of hope shone through his expression. "Mom," he whispered, desperately searching her gaze, as if her presence alone could anchor him through the oncoming tide. With a fierce determination, she shouted, "Remember us, Ethan. Remember who you are." She squeezed his arm with both hands, pouring every ounce of love into that touch, grounding them against the chaos of Tom's laughter reverberating like thunder in a storm. But Tom was not done. "You think love will save you? This is a game. One that you cannot win." His form shifted, the shadows bent and twisted around him like a malignant crown. In an instant, the shadows surged, and Rachel felt a wave of cold rush through her. It pushed her back, weighed down by unwelcome memories, snippets of sadness and despair. She staggered, struggling to keep her grip on Ethan, who was now shrinking within this enveloping darkness. Suddenly, the music box glowed a bizarre green, illuminating the entire room. The floor trembled, and Rachel felt an innate fear rise. The darkness was just trying to claim Ethan. It aimed to swallow her whole, to dissolve their connection entirely. "Stay with me, Ethan," she cried, the shadows swirling furiously as if refusing to let her words resonate. And then, she noticed it. A familiar shape inscribed on the side of the box, a drawing of the very house they lived in, the shackled memories sealed within its walls now starting to unravel, spilling into the present. "What have you done?" she gasped, understanding hitting her like a punch to the gut. This wasn't merely a trap. It was connected to her, its power drawn from their lives, their fears laid bare like open wounds. "Join us, Rachel. The collection will never be complete without you," Tom purred, his voice like honey mixed with venom. In that moment of realization, the shadows lunged toward her, the call of lost souls intertwining with their cries. They clawed at the edges of her mind, threatening to engulf her, but Rachel had no intention of surrendering, not now, not ever. "We are not yours," she roared, and with a defiant tug, she pulled Ethan closer. Yet, as their bond fought against the gathering storm, she felt the music pulse, thrumming with an ominous rhythm that foreboded a greater horror yet to come. Would it be enough to wrench them free? Or would this be the moment when hope shattered, leaving them at the mercy of a darkness more profound than fear itself. Rachel's heart pounded like a drum, each beat resonating with the desperation of her resolve. The shadows writhed and twisted around her, a fluttering army clamoring for her surrender, but she stood firm, fueled by a mother's instinct. Ethan was fighting, she could see it in the flicker of his eyes, battling against the darkness that gnawed at him. "Mom, I can't, it's so strong," Ethan whimpered, straining against the cold grip that seemed to meld with his very being. The shadows pulsed around them, a deceptive serenity cloaking their malicious intent. "Breathe, Ethan. Focus on me," Rachel urged, her voice strained but steady. She gripped his arms tighter, trying to pull him from the depths of despair that sought to bind him. The music continued to reverberate through the air, each note sharp, as if it could slice through her resolve. Tom's laughter echoed in the background, cruel and mocking, feeding on their fear. "You are in my realm now, Rachel. You can't win. Not against what you've unleashed." His form flickered like a bad signal, shifting between shapes, an image of Ethan, a reflection of Rachel, even a grotesque portrait of fear, a collage of her worst memories echoed in his eyes. With each note of the music, Rachel felt a pulse of energy radiate from the box. It wasn't just music, it was a heartbeat of the malevolence lurking just beneath the surface. Panic clawed at her throat. "Ethan. We have to fight together." She squeezed his arms, grounding him with the weight of her love. Just then, a shift in the shadows caught her eye. A silhouette emerged from the depths, creeping closer, a whirl of dark fabric and malice. Rachel squinted, and a chill danced along her spine as she recognized the face. It was one of the children she had seen earlier, eyes wide and glassy with a silent scream. "No!" Ethan gasped, taking a half-step back, but the shadows coiled tighter, pulling him toward the figure, an extension of the darkness, nurturing the very fears Rachel fought against. "Ethan. Look at me. You need to remember who you are, who we are." She shouted, her voice breaking through the layer of dread. Then the shadows opened momentarily as another figure joined, a fleeting glimpse of a girl, her eyes pleading. "Help us," she whispered, her voice a soft echo laced with years of despair. Something stirred within the music box, the melody warping into a sorrowful wail, drowning out Tom's laughter for a fleeting moment. "Mom. I can't." Ethan strained, his frame betraying the inner turmoil as he stumbled in the shadow's grip. "I feel them. They're so sad." He closed his eyes, tears spilling free, a connection forged through shared suffering, drawing in the pain and despair that surrounded them. "Turn that sadness into strength. You can do this." Rachel cried, her own heart breaking at the sight of his anguish. She could feel the full weight of their tragic past, the secrets, the hurt hidden away, pulsating from the music box like a specter come to life. The shadows recoiled slightly, as if her words struck a nerve. "You're going to pay for this defiance," Tom hissed, his voice laced with venom, growing louder as the vortex of darkness swirled faster. In Heather's eyes, death met hope, and she blinked away her tears. "I want to let you take him. I want to." With one final push, she summoned every ounce of defiance, channeling it through the grasp she had on Ethan. The energy surged not just from her but from the tether of love binding them, laced with Ethan's own flickers of defiance. The shadows churned, and with it came a furious gust, knocking Rachel back. She stumbled, but raw instinct lunged forward again. Ethan gasped, catching her gaze, a bolt of recognition flashing in his eyes. It wasn't just love that pulled them, it was an unyielding bond, tethered to their very existence. Suddenly, the music box erupted, filling the air with a discordant symphony of screams and cries, the faces of the lost children appearing in the flickering light, swirling into view, pleading for release. Tom's form contorted with rage, flickering like a candle in a storm. "Mom, I remember." Ethan cried, clarity bursting through the chaos. But before she could celebrate, the very fabric of the room trembled as a dark wave engulfed them. Rachel's heart dropped as the music shifted, darkening into a menacing cadence. "Ethan, stay strong. As the shadows clawed at them, the melody strangled around their words, threatening to drown their fight in an overwhelming flood of darkness. Not yet. We're not done. Her voice trembled on the brink. Would their bond be strong enough? Or would Tom's laughter erupt in triumph, sealing their fate forever? With fear clawing at her chest, she braced for the impending storm, knowing one thing: the fight was far from over. Would they survive the next wave, or would despair sink them deep into the abyss? The darkness swirled, igniting a palpable terror in the air as the music box continued its lament, intertwining sorrow and rage like a sinister dance. Ethan's eyes shone with newfound clarity, but the shadows began pulling him back, undulating almost playfully as they relished their power over him. Rachel felt the energy shift. It was as if something ancient and vile stirred within those depths, hungry for destruction. "Hold on to me, Ethan. I won't let go." Rachel shouted, desperate to bring him back from the edge, feeling the weight of the shadows trying to drag him away. Their grip tightened like icy vice, siphoning strength from her body, making her breath shallow and fast. Tom's cackling laughter pierced through the screams of the lost children, the taunt echoing louder than ever. "You think you can win this? Look around you. Your resolve is crumbling with every beat. You're outnumbered. You fed them your fear." Rachel's breath quickened as she witnessed the shadows morphing into monstrous shapes, each one representing a fear she had buried deep, a phantom of her past mistakes, the guilt that clawed at her, and the torment of her unshed tears. "No!" she screamed defiantly. "I am not afraid of you." The shadows flickered at her proclamation, momentarily hesitating as if her words had struck a nerve. Ethan pulled against the dark mist, his body trembling, glimmering with the struggle between defiance and despair. Rachel gathered her strength and gripped his arms tighter, pulling him closer, their intimacy forming a flicker of light amid the consuming void. "Remember our moments, Ethan. Our laughter. The times we fought together." Her voice surged, imbued by that maternal fire, flicking between warmth and resolve. "When we faced life's challenges, we stood side by side. This darkness fears what we can become together." But the shadows retaliated, surging forward like an avalanche, engulfing Rachel in a torrent of memories. Visions of Ethan's first day at school, the time he fell and scraped his knee, the silly faces they made in the mirror, all spiraled through her mind, fused with a cold dread. Ghostly whispers taunted her, reminding her of every moment she faltered, every breath of doubt. Yet a new sound broke through, melding with the mournful cries, rising like a shimmering thread of hope. It was Ethan's voice, clearer now, standing resolute against the shadows. "Mom! I can feel it. I can feel them, but I can also feel you." He focused, and for the first time amidst the waves of darkness, a light flickered behind his eyes. He thrust his hand forward, fingers stretching toward Rachel. "We can break this. We have to trust each other." She felt the warmth radiate from him, drawing her in, igniting the embers of her own courage. "Ethan, I believe in you," she roared, their connection trembling with power. Suddenly, the music altered, shifting from screams to a chorus, an ageless battle cry of reclamation echoing through the abyss. The shadows shrieked and recoiled, momentarily off balance, their power wavering. But Tom's voice erupted above the turmoil, riled and furious. "Foolish mortals! You think this is enough?" The shadows collapsed back, darkening around them, brewing an even more terrible charge. The walls of the realm seemed to pulse, breathing as if alive, feeding off their rising fear. It pulsated, drawing closer, coaxing out their terror. Then, when hope felt almost attainable, a figure emerged from the swirling ink of shadows, a dark reflection carved from the very essence of their fears, twisted into a nightmarish version of Ethan. "What's left of you?" it crooned, voice smooth like oil, a slithering mockery of their bond. "You'll never win. You are nothing." Rachel gasped, heart racing, uncertainty washing over her. "Ethan! Don't listen." But the shadows enveloped them again, hungry eyes glowing. The figure smiled, lips curling in an eerie perfection, whispering promises of despair, and deep within Rachel felt the ground rumbling, a final trial looming, tension quaked in the air, Rachel's pulse thundered in her ears. Which way would this storm shift? Would Ethan's emerging resolve hold against the dark? Would they face their tormentor or become another pair of lost souls entwined in Tom's wicked realm? As shadows licked at their feet, she realized they had one final choice to make. Trust or be swallowed whole. Would they risk it all? Rachel's heart pounded as the twisted version of Ethan leaned closer, its features impossibly sharp, like a predator sizing up its prey. The air thickened, swirling around them, heavy with dread. Memories clawed at her mind, shifting like blurs of darkness, dragging her back to overwhelming despair. Ethan! She cried, shaking her head, trying to dispel the horror. Look at me. This isn't real. You're stronger than this. But the shadow version of him let out a cruel laugh, echoing throughout the abyss. Stronger? You've always been the one in control, haven't you? How does it feel to realize you can't save him? You're weak. With each word, its voice twisted deeper, embedding doubt into her heart. She felt the shadows pulling at her resolve, whispering wicked truths that threatened to spill forth. Images of failures whirled around, times she'd chosen wrong, moments she'd let fear govern her actions. It was a relentless barrage. No! Rachel shouted, her voice carving defiance through the mist. The darkness shuddered, slipping briefly, but the copy continued, relentless in its taunts. You'll never win. He'll become me. You'll be left with nothing. Ethan's original form trembled, caught between the two realities, the mocking shadow and the fierce light of his mother's belief. But in that fleeting moment, Rachel noticed something in his eyes, a flicker of understanding rising against the tide. I am not you. Ethan stammered against the pull of the dark force. Mom. I remember. We are not just memories. We're alive. Together. The shadow figure convulsed, its form destabilizing for a moment. It was as if their connection shone bright enough to push back the consuming dark. But the shadows retaliated, swirling aggressively around them, morphing into agonizing faces of their fears, lost friends, shattered dreams, regret. Rachel gasped as she saw faces of people she had loved, their expressions twisted in pain, a carnival of despair. Make them stop. She begged, clutching Ethan's hand tighter as visions of her past flickered before her. But then Ethan squeezed back, grounding her even as fear threatened to launch her into a void of madness. We can't give in, Mom. Fight. Remember happiness. Fueled by his words, Rachel began to call forth the beautiful memories, the joy that lived alongside their fears. She could feel the warmth pulsing in her chest, and it sparked in Ethan, reaching toward the darkness with an ember of hope. The shadows hesitated, their shapes faltering, revealing glimpses of a brighter world. But wait. Tom hissed, his voice now laced with an edge of panic. This can't be how it ends. Together. Rachel shouted, forcing the memories to coalesce into a symphony of light. It poured forth, illuminating the void, filling it with laughter, with their shared moments, bright and vivid. All at once, the shadows seethed, howling in fury as the light began to consume their dark forms. No! Tom shrieked, his facets twisting into a grotesque mask of anger. You cannot win like this. As the shadows began to dissolve, Rachel felt the surge of triumph mingle with an impending dread. The ground shook violently beneath them, as if the realm itself was collapsing around their newly ignited bond. Ethan shouted, "We need to hold on. Don't let go." But then, with a sudden jolt, the darkness recoiled violently, creating a vortex that swallowed their connection whole. The moment shattered like glass, cascading into a cacophony of screams. Ethan's grip slipped from her fingers, their bond weakening under the relentless power of Tom's wrath. No! Rachel screamed again, panic flooding her veins. Ethan! She reached out into the void, straining her senses, the darkness swirling around her like a storm. And in that blinding flash of terror, she sensed something worse lingering, a deeper shadow in the storm, a new threat, a darker force that seemed ready to emerge from the depths. What had they awakened? What madness lay in wait beyond the fray? As the shadows closed in, Rachel's heart raced. Would this newfound bond hold amidst the chaos, or would the darkness consume them both? Time was running out. Rachel's breath quickened, the darkness around her thickening like a fog that crushed her chest. Panic clawed at her throat, choking her words as she groped through the shadows for any sign of Ethan. Desperation beat in her ears, a frantic rhythm underscored by the howls of torment echoing from the gloom. She knew they needed to find each other, but it felt as if the darkness itself conspired to keep them apart. Ethan! She shouted again, her voice trembling as it echoed through that void, swallowed by the bitter shadows. Each passing second seemed to stretch into eternity. What if he was gone? What if the shadows had claimed him? Suddenly, the howling around her intensified, transforming into anguished wails. Faces of despair emerged from the darkness, twisted visages of people she recognized. Friends, family, long-lost loves, all wretched and tormented. Their eyes were hollow, mouths twisted in silent screams. It was a macabre gallery of grief and darkness, each one beckoning with skeletal hands, urging her to join them. Stop! Rachel cried, unable to recoil. She staggered backward, but there was nowhere to go underneath this menacing vault of shadows. The air was thick with their screams, and her heart raced faster than she thought possible. You won't take me. This stand against despair felt futile, but she pushed back. A spark ignited inside her, a flicker of the love she had for Ethan, the determination that had fueled her since the very beginning. With clenched fists, she summoned all her strength, remembering their moments together, their laughter, their shared adventures, the way he used to smile. Ethan! I believe in you. We can fight. She screamed into the void, the shadows flickered violently, as if struck by a sudden gust of wind. For a moment, Rachel saw the shadows stagger, recoiling in recoil from her unwavering love. Don't let them control you. She encouraged, drawing strength from the hope that pulsed through her veins. Then, she heard it. A faint whisper among the manic howls, a voice familiar and dear. Mom! I'm here. Her heart surged. Ethan! Where are you? Follow my voice, he called back. How could she? The shadows shifted and morphed, threatening to engulf her once again. But fear was a foe she had faced many times, she had to focus on the sound of his voice. Pushing through the dark, she called out repeatedly, Ethan. The deeper she ventured, the more she could almost sense him. The shifting shadows calmed, momentarily paralyzed by the intensity of her will. Just then, the ground trembled violently, a shadowy figure coalescing in front of her, a grotesque shape forming from the void. You think you can save him? It crooned, a malevolent, venomous sound that echoed with dark promises. You will only find your own destruction. Rachel stumbled back, her defiance faltering. That voice, it was Tom. Each word dripped with malice. She had to stay strong. But she could feel the shadows pushing with force, pressing against her mind, threatening to break her resolve. No! She bellowed, forcing the echoes of laughter, warmth, and love to drown out Tom's poison. You are not my son. You are just a parasite. In that instant, a counterforce stirred. A luminescence erupted within the abyss, swinging like a pendulum between light and darkness. Rachel could hardly breathe as she stole a glance through the gloom. Mom! Focus! Ethan's voice suddenly shot through the chaos. But as Rachel's hope flared, something shifted anew. Beyond her and Ethan's fight, something darker loomed, an ancient presence stirring from the depths of the void. What unseen horror had they unearthed? A true monster awaited them, hungering not just for Ethan, but for everything good left in this world. Ethan! She screamed, panic rising once more. The shadows vibrated with anticipation. The darkness had one last trick to play. Would they withstand the next wave of chaos, or would their hope fade into the suffocating gloom? Rachel felt the tremors of dread ripple through her. The shadows, now animated by a malevolence that seemed to pulse, swayed around her like black smoke, tightening their grip. Every breath she took felt labored, laced with the acrid scent of despair. "Ethan!" She shouted again, but her voice seemed to dissipate like mist, swallowed by the chorus of misery. The figure lurking before her leaned closer, writhing and twisting in an unsettling dance of serpentine grace. Its features grew sharper, the face becoming an indistinct horror that morphed into relics of her past, people she had lost, moments she couldn't bear to revisit. "Join us, Rachel," it hissed, the voice now a cacophony of all she had loved and lost. "We're waiting, always waiting." "No!" she screamed, shaking her head, willing the images to vanish. It was tantamount to clawing at a nightmare to wake up. She had to focus. "Mom!" Just a bit further. Ethan's voice cut through, desperately insistent. The flicker of hope ignited again, fueling her resolve. She waded through the oppressive gloom towards the sound, intuition guiding her footsteps even when the shadows lunged and pulled at her. They tugged at her mind too, whispering doubts and fears, probing into the shadows of her past, her failures, her guilt. "Fight it!" Rachel urged herself, squeezing her eyes shut against the madness threatening to overtake her. "You must hold on." With each step, the shadows roared in fury, thrashing about her as if her determination was a flame they couldn't extinguish. The terror mounted, the air thickening with hostility, pressing down on her shoulders, attempting to pin her under its weight. "Ethan!" She yelled again, her voice a raw rasp. She felt she was shattering, her spirit cracking beneath the torment. "Mom!" The urgency in Ethan's voice ignited a fierce instinct within her. She forced her eyes open, shoving aside lingering visions of torment and despair. Suddenly, the ground beneath her trembled violently again, as if some primordial beast stirred awake, agitated by her resistant joy. The shadows converged, swirling like a storm ready to unleash hell. Rachel braced herself, lifting her chin defiantly. Out of the chaos, a tendril of pure darkness lashed toward her, seizing her wrist. "No!" she cried, feeling cold fingers tighten their grip, sinking deeper. Shadows slithered along her arm, she could feel them seeping into her skin. Her heart raced, pumping adrenaline as she tugged back to release herself. "Mom! Let go!" Ethan shouted, anger and fear intertwined. With every ounce of her strength, Rachel wrenched her arm free, forcing the swirling shadows to lose their grip. Light began to surge from her heart, illuminating the void, golden strokes bursting forth with intensity. "Stop! You cannot have him!" she declared, not out of arrogance but from a place of primal love. "My love is stronger than your hatred." As the shadows recoiled, the shape that had once been Tom writhed. "You think light can fend me off?" it screeched, eyes those empty, hollow pits fixated on her. "Futility awaits, Rachel. Eternal darkness beckons, and it will not be denied." The last fragments of its voice echoed ominously, and the shadows around her heaved again. What fell before her, however, wasn't merely empty darkness, it was something grotesque, a boiling mass of memories, regrets, and vengeance, coiling tighter. Rachel steeled herself, taking a step back but standing her ground. "Ethan!" she yelled again, the cry stretching across the churning blackness, an urgent plea for clarity amidst chaos. Suddenly, the ground quaked again, but it felt different. Darker shapes twisted and contorted, losing form. The shadows began to flicker, pulsing erratically. Ethan's desperate call echoed, "Mom, hurry. It's trying to break through." With that, Rachel lunged forward, into the void, not away from it, but towards the heart of the beast. This was a battle for their souls, but she had to wonder, what if her journey into the heart of darkness unlocked something far beyond even her deepest fears? Would she find Ethan, or would she uncover something lost forever? Rachel's pulse raced as she plunged deeper into the heart of the black mass swirling before her. The depths of darkness beckoned, each breath thick with dread, but her love for Ethan burned bright a beacon through the storm. "I'm coming for you," she shouted, voice surging above the suffocating whispers of dread. The shadows writhed, their cries morphing into anguished roars as they retreated slightly, startled by her fierce determination. She knew her heart pulsed with resilience, a fire ignited by their bond. "Ethan!" Rachel cried again, her voice echoing through the madness. Every step felt like plunging through the coldest water, but this was a fight for her son's soul. Nothing would keep her from him. As she pressed forward, images flickered around her, memories of laughter, warmth, and tears. Not just her memories, but his too, drawing her in, pulling her closer to the core of this dark enigma. "I see you, Ethan. I see you," she urged, so certain that he was within reach. Just beyond the shadows, the darkness convulsed, surging forward in an attempt to engulf her. "Join us!" Various voices shrieked, a collage of lost children crying out to her from the depths. It was all so desperately sorrowful, like a symphony playing her past mistakes on repeat. But she pressed on, her heart thrumming with the pulse of their connection. And then, she felt it, a warmth cutting through the void around her, a flickering glow that danced like a candle in the wind. "Mom!" A voice rose from amidst the shadows. It was Ethan's, resonating stronger than ever. "Help me, please. Ethan, I'm here," she howled. With every ounce of strength, she pushed past phantoms clawing at her mind, a whirlwind of trembling limbs and hollow eyes. Suddenly, a surge of clarity hit her. The darkness was not just a force, but an embodiment of fear shaped by hurt. In that realization, Rachel felt hope ignite within her. "You're not alone," she yelled. "We're stronger together. We always have been." From within the swirling chaos, she could see a glimmer of light forming. Ethan's figure emerged, trapped but brightening like a star breaking through clouds. With renewed vigor, she charged forward, ignoring the agony of shadows that wrapped around her like chains. "Fight it, Ethan. Remember us. Remember who you are." The words spilled from her lips, a lifeline reaching deep into the dark. His face, once shadowed in fear, began to illuminate as he fought against the encroaching shadows. "Mom!" he shouted again, determination in his gaze. "I'm trying. Don't give in." Rachel felt her heart swell, burning with love that connected them stronger than any darkness. They were woven together through each memory forged over years, a tapestry of laughter, joy, and love fighting against despair. As Ethan's eyes met hers, Rachel broke through the final layers of darkness encasing him. "You have the strength. You are my son. You are light," she called, power surging through their bond like 1,000 suns igniting. Ethan nodded, resolutely defiant as he pushed back hard against the shadows binding him. "I want to let you take me." He charged forward, the tendrils of darkness recoiling, shrieking in fury at their resistance. In that moment, the darkness trembled and brightened, chaos erupting as the shadows frayed around their connection. With one last united effort, Rachel intertwined her fingers with Ethan's, a thrust of collective strength. One spark ignited, tolerance burned brighter. Together, they screamed, their voices merging, breaking the silence of despair as a brilliant surge of light erupted from their hands. Light swallowed the shadows whole, illuminating the abyss with an incandescent brilliance that shattered the murky night. Tom's face twisted one last time, a grotesque amalgamation of rage and desperation, and with a final, echoing howl, the darkness imploded. The howls morphed into hollow sighs as the void began to collapse, shadows pulled back and beyond the veil of existence. Rachel and Ethan clung to one another until the world around them shifted, brimming with light, a scattering of hope chasing away the remnants of despair. An otherworldly glow enveloped them like an embrace, lifting them high above the darkness. As the remnants flowed beneath, they stood, united on solid ground, the rain streaming gently outside their window. The storm, once furious, had calmed, merging smoothly with the scent of fresh earth. Breathing in the serene clarity, Rachel clutched Ethan tightly, and he buried his head into her shoulder, finally able to shake off remnants of fear shackling him. "We did it, Mom." His voice wavered, but tears shined with his smile. "We're free together," she whispered back, overwhelmed with love, heart swelling with pride, knowing they had unearthed the strength held between them. They stepped outside as the rain glistened, the sunlight peeking through clouds, here to meet them on a brighter day. The warmth they felt illuminated everything around them. Rachel looked down the street at the houses full of possibility, ready to embrace their future, every shadow from the past evaporating like mist. As laughter floated from the children playing on the street, she knew the last of the shadows had been lifted from their lives. "We'll always be stronger together, Ethan. No shadows can take that from us." And with a smile lighting her face, the two stepped forward into a world of infinite tomorrows, fearless, united, and ready to embrace whatever came next. Don't wait another second, this is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe now to the channel so you don't miss out on the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button to feed the algorithm, each click means the world. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending, we want to hear from you. And don't forget to instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Let us spread this adventure far and wide.